On Tuesday, March 10th, I was flown out to Los Angeles to be in a movie. The movie thing was an experience that I don't really want to talk about anymore, at least not right now. I got to stay in the house of Jules Dameron, an award-winning deaf filmmaker, for a week, and that was the first time that I really got involved in the deaf community in person. For the past 23 and a half years of my life, I've been raised as an oral deaf person, which is normal when you live with a hearing father and a deaf person whose vagina you came out of who is deaf but was also raised to be an oral deaf person. It's unfortunate, but it's very normal. My knowledge of sign language was limited to the alphabet, which wasn't very good, and a few basic signs here and there. So when Jules and I made final arrangements for me to stay in our house for the week, I was both very nervous and very excited. I was wondering how communication was going to go smoothly, even though I knew and understood that we're both deaf and we both have experiences when it comes to figuring out communication and how both parties understand. So, when I landed in LAX, Jules picked me up and everything was going alright, except for the fact that I was very, very stiff with my signing. I arrived at her house about an hour or so later after lunch, and already I'm meeting two more deaf people that are her roommates. Well, no, her friend and her roommate. I'm overwhelmed and scared of all the signing that I don't know, and I'm tired from the flight with the time zone differences and all. So I pretty much just mind my own business in the corner of the kitchen and relax and just, you know, fiddle with my laptop because I'm too scared to go and be involved with the stuff happening in the living room. And that's pretty much what happened that afternoon. That evening there was an event somewhere in Los Angeles called #ILove99. Is that hashtag? Yeah? I don't know. And some other people from the Los Angeles NoHo deaf community was there. There was a hearing interpreter and 5 to 6 other people who are deaf and hard of hearing, including myself. I ended up meeting Josh Castile, who is a deaf actor, and he was and still is, as far as I am aware, or I will be very sad, a fan of my YouTube videos. We had each other added on Facebook for about a month or so before I actually flew to LA, but we never talked at all. So overall, the show was really fun. It was really hilarious, and it was nice meeting the other deaf people. And Austin makes a pretty fantastic interpreter. So I skipped to Wednesday, and things were getting a little more comfortable, but I still wasn't very comfortable using the little bit of sign that I did know, even though I knew that I should be comfortable because we're all the same, we're all deaf, and they wouldn't judge me. And if they did, I know Josh and Jules would probably kick their butts. But with so many changes all at once and being in a new environment with people that are just like you, but you've still never even been involved with people that are just like you before, it's very overwhelming. So on Wednesday night, Jules, Kaylin, and I went to Josh's and his roommate's house for a game night. And the two roommates turned out to be the girls that I had met the night before, and one of the deaf guys that I had also met before. He is the boyfriend of one of the roommates. And I also ended up meeting another guy that day before we left, and his name is Matt, and he's very nice and hilarious. The communication for me was even harder at that point because a lot more people signing in a very small environment. It's one thing to be involved with one or two other people, and it's another to be involved with so many people with so many different conversations going on. So we're all in the kitchen playing games and eating food, and you know that there's going to be a lot more signing. Just so you know, trying to follow at least 4 different ASL conversations when you are a newbie is so hard. This is one of those examples where being the hard of hearing kid is just like in the middle. You can't understand the hearing people, and when you don't know sign very well, you can't understand the deaf people. It's scary either way. But regardless, it was a lot of fun. We ended up changing games to Uno, which I was actually familiar with, and it was fun. It was really, really fun. And I can't believe I didn't realize until near when I was coming back to North Carolina that Amelia and Sandra and even Josh and I were all in the same with captions video that we all did with Glide. None of us said anything though about that, so oh well. And those 3 have the 2 most adorable kittens I had seen in a while, and I wanted to steal them and bring them back. But it would have been too obvious that it was me who stole them. And that Thursday was the first day of shooting, so I spent all day working, but I did have Josh with me. But at the end of day 1 of shooting, Josh came up to me when we were leaving and going down Hollywood and said, "I don't know who you are, because you just went from being way too scared to sign and being very awkward with your signing to just signing a bunch." I mean, it was the same stuff over and over and over for the most part, but it was still a hell of a lot more and flowed a lot better than the first 2 days I was there. It was mostly stuff like, on Friday I don't recall a lot of stuff happening because it was another day of shooting, but I did have Quinn, who is also involved with film a little bit. He's also deaf, and we signed together during shooting. Saturday was the final day of shooting. I had Quinn with me, but other than that, not a whole lot going on. And then on Sunday, I met Nick Salentes. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, sorry. Jules was hosting a little finally finished with the movie filming thing, and it was a party, and she wanted me to meet with people that I already met, but also meet with a few other people that I had not met yet. Nick was the producer for the ASL music video for Frozen's Let It Go that Jules herself directed. It was really fun that day. He was super awesome and nice, and again, more signing happened. I could kind of, sort of, along with talking, sign out a whole story of what happened during the 3 days of filming. It wasn't perfect, but there were no complaints, so I had to be good at something. And then on Monday, Jules hosted a signing off get together for me, and I finally got to meet 2 professional deaf actors that I had been a fan of for years, especially Amber Zion, who I've been a huge fan of her for a couple of years now. And I actually told Jules ahead of time that I would probably faint the first time that I see her in person. Oh, and the other person that I met is named Dickie Hartz. So we all decided to go out for sushi, and when Dickie and Amber came into the building at completely 2 separate times, I was thinking, oh shit, these people are real. Okay. And then, oh my god, Amber Zion is real. So we pretty much just spent a few hours together eating sushi, and then we went out for frozen yogurt / coffee, and we stayed in the shop until closing and until it was pretty much time for me to head back to Jules' house and start packing for the flight the next day. And it was a pretty sad goodbye for me. I didn't want to say anything about this, but when Josh and I did a final hug on Monday night, and after he and Jules left, I ended up crying a little bit in the bathroom. So ever since I've been back, and I've been back for a little over a week now, I've been in this little hole of depression. I mean, I've already been depressed for a very long time, so that's nothing new. But with what happened with filming and then me suddenly being away from all these new and awesome people when I was just with them, I've just been pretty bad mentally. And obviously the only thing that would help this is if I went back to LA as soon as possible and as often as possible. And of course that option is more than I can afford on a regular basis currently. So the solution to that problem is I need to keep working as much and as often as I can to make that happen, because I definitely want that to happen. Of course, a popular question now is going to be, are you going to start signing in your videos? And the answer to that right now is no. Because I'm nowhere near fluent. I'm nowhere near fluent enough to have a basic conversation, and I'm just not comfortable with doing that right now. But I am still signing on Glide a little bit with Jules, and I'm learning and picking up vocabulary. So eventually I will get to the point where I will more than likely feel comfortable doing so. But it's not something I feel comfortable doing right now. Especially since grammar is so confusing. When I was there and signing, I was following along with what everybody else was doing. And I never had any complaints or corrections with the grammar part of it. But then when I look at other stuff that I'm learning from, the grammar looks more ASL kind of grammar. And when I think back to how I was doing it while I was there, I feel like I signed more in English grammar. So I'm not sure what's happening with that, and since Jules and Josh and them are probably going to watch this video, they'll probably tell me what's up. Because I don't know, and I just want to make sure that I'm doing it right. But if they can follow along with what I'm signing, then maybe I am doing it right, and I'm just thinking way too much. Which is probably what's happening. That happens a lot. So yeah. That is my whole deaf community journey, and it's been quite a journey, and I'm very excited to see how it unfolds and continues. Anyway, I'm about to cry now. Anyway, Josh, Jules, Kaylin, Michael, Anthony, Spady, because he is so adamant on how you say his name. I love you all, and I miss you all. All of you. Including all the people that I did not mention. I'll see you next time. Bye.